So just want to point out, Oregon State University has an Ecoroof test plot study or study going on, and these are just an example of what they have, where these are elevated modules, I guess, or roofs, and you can see that they're examining a variety of different things, but one of them is just, of course, runoff from a conventional roof right here, then runoff from just a roof with soil on it and no plant material. And then they also have then some planted roofs, of course, to measure runoff. But one of the things that's interesting is they're also measuring how much irrigation water is necessary for plant survivability. And so what we have is, we can't identify it exactly in here because we wanted to make sure we were clear if we had that slide, but they have a quarter of an inch of water per week,
no, 10 days.
per 10 days, and then they're doing a ½ inch of water every 10 days, and then they're also doing no water. So they're looking at how the plant's surviving. And so, Tom, do you want to talk a little bit about just what you observed when you were down there?
Well, yeah, when I was down there in August of this year, right after we had the storm, somewhere around the 20th or something like that of this year, they had already set up their stormwater measuring tanks on each one of these units. And so
You can see one right there,
yeah,
down at the bottom.
so the
Yeah, I would say they're sloped back. This is the spout where that water comes down and into the tank.
I don't know what slope they're on, but it's a little bit of a slope. They're relatively flat. But what happened is that the runoff from the storm from the conventional roof, which is this one here, was 5 gallons. The runoff from the soil-only roofs was 2 gallons. The runoff from all of the vegetated roofs, whether they were watered the ½ inch, quarter inch, or no water at all, irrigation, was 0. And and if you were here last week, Tim Kurtz, our engineer, he said, "Okay, now Tom, don't get too excited about that because, I'm attributing it to the plants and the roots, since that is the obvious difference between the soil only and the planted roofs." But it was pretty interesting information, and we'll see what they come up with as time goes by on these plots. So this is a really good test facility. It's unique from some of the other ones at Michigan State and Penn State. So Oregon State has kind of set this up in a little different way to get answers that those other institutions are not necessarily getting. Now they're getting other answers that maybe we're not going to get.
Right.
They planted them last year. I can't remember exactly when they planted them. This was their
It's the first growing season.
first summer. I don't remember, so I'll have to check on that.
Yeah.
Which department is doing this?
This is the horticulture department, and if you would like a contact person, let me know. And one of the students and professors that's working on this, I can get you their contact information.
Do they also measure temperature underneath these then?
Yes, they are measuring temperature, and I don't know what else. They're measuring temperature as it relates to the plants. Now, you might be able to extrapolate from that and look at energy type issues associated with, the movement of heat one way or the other. But their interest is in the plants, and they actually set up some temperature probes on this roof for about 6 months, and got some pretty interesting information.
Yep.
With the irrigation and the global warming, one of my questions is there's 3 functions of a green roof: stormwater management, cooling of the building, and protection of the roof. So to get the cooling of the building, if my soil goes, say 2% moisture content during those hot months, am I getting any cooling benefit at that point? Especially with, you'd mentioned the grapes, grape plants, I think, have deep root systems. And with such a low soil profile, by adding a very small amount of water, are we getting the most benefit out of that roof? I guess is the question.
It's something that Portland State University is working on right over here in their mechanical engineering department and things. So the answer to how much moisture would be best as it relates to energy, moisture in the soil and the vegetation, is a good question. And the answer is to be determined, I think, at least as far as we know. And that's what Portland State they're working on that to a certain extent.
And the last thing I want to point out was also that the difference between the plant material that was non-irrigated and the 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch material. Tom, you're pointing out that between the 1/4 and the 1/2 inch, there's really no difference between the look of the plant material. It was all surviving very well, but there was a little bit of difference in that in the plant material. You could tell the difference between the non-irrigated and the irrigated stuff.
And they were trying a number of different species. So the ones that were the succulents did the best, and the ones that were other, like some of the grasses and things like that, they didn't. The ones that weren't irrigated, there was a lot of dead stuff.
Is there different kinds of soil media, or all the ones?
They're all the exact same soil media, right?
Question,
There's someone behind you. I'm sorry, that had his hand up.
I just have a question on the roofs that don't have any vegetation at all, or were set up that way, that they eventually become vegetated?
They removed the weeds, because any vegetation in those roofs is a weed. So yes, they remove them periodically.
If they didn't, would they end up being an Ecoroof?
Well, they might become that moss roof that we saw in the previous presentation on that residence that we saw.
Would that be a bad thing?
It may or may not be a bad thing. I'm hoping they let some of them go as just part of their testing. They might do that, so we can see.
In your report, does it also provide plant selections that are used underneath solar panels? Like the previous week, they were talking about some setup is really good with solar panel above it.
Well, there's a study from Germany that looked at the plants under soil panels, not soil panels, PVs. And Portland State is going to work on a project. Well, they're actually working on it now, setting up a system. And then Mercy Corps is going to have a combination of PVs and Ecoroof. But we don't have the answer yet. But there are a couple projects in the works in Portland to help us understand that.
Okay, we're going to keep moving on here.